the Lord mentions this mystery of little things growing. Some of you here are still very small and very much growing. And the first thing that is planted in you is the one that will remain. Hence it is that you're privileged, and more privileged than you think, you little people, to be born into an atmosphere where there's much prayer, much grace, and much orthodox good teaching given. Because the first message that you're getting is the correct one. And it's important that those messages come before they get some other message, which is not long in coming, as you know, e.g. from the media and from friends. So listen to what is said at home, because that is the correct message, whatever other folks later on may say down the line. Now, with regard to you little people, you are in a situation of being more privileged than you think for another reason. A child comes straight from God. The body comes rather like a mustard seed growing mysteriously from the parents. But the soul is implanted directly from God, who creates for each body coming into being a brand new soul, which has one journey through time and will come back to him. And it is said that at the moment of creating a soul and about to send it on its journey through time, God, as it were, beams into it, at the moment of creating it, his image. As you know, we are made in the image of God. But it's as though God is imprinting something of himself in there and sending it on its way, but with this awareness of where it's coming from. It's just for a fraction of a second glimpsed God somehow before coming on this journey. That's why you people, the little ones, somehow still know it. More than the rest of us who are getting on more in time, because you're close to that first ignition which sent you here. And you are naturally aware that there's a goodness at your origin. You are naturally aware that God is there. And you know in your heart too, because that's from him as well, what is right and wrong. You know in your heart of hearts, because there's a bad feeling inside when you disobey what you know inside. And that too is given by God. Indeed, one of the great philosophers of modern times, C.S. Lewis, used that as a proof that God exists, because all the people around the world, wherever they are, have the same code deep down of knowing what is right and what is wrong. Therefore, there must be some brain behind all that, planting it. Now, with regard to that, there are consequences. If you little ones are still in that initial period of contact, of not being contaminated yet, it means that there's something rather like an angel in your soul. Now, the angels can see more than we can. They can see exactly, e.g., what's going on around here, where the Lord is going to be here in a few seconds, right here in the midst. They can see it. And your angel too. Now, some children also have a link with that invisible world. As long as they're still pure, the Lord gives some children extra bits now and again. I've come across it more than once. That they, until they're contaminated, are more accessible to special gifts and graces. So open your ears inside to anything that might happen, because it can happen in a family like this. Now, there are some things which are exceptional that can happen, a word or whatever, but there are other things which can be sharpened. E.g., being aware that we have a guardian angel and that he's there waiting to be asked to do something, and we don't bother. But if we do, he's delighted. And the more we cultivate that devotion to our guardian angel, the more things can start to happen. E.g., if you've lost an object, what do? Scream? Well, get your guardian angel onto the job. He sees perfectly well where it is. And you'll probably find something nudging you out of the blue. An idea will come But it's not just an idea. Look there, you might have a surprise. And of course that's where it is, because he can see it perfectly well. He's standing there, you eat it, I can see. And he's just leading you along. But also, he's trying to warn us. I've read quite a few testimonies of this kind of thing. Either in the air, which is important, or on the road, which is no less important. Sudden nudges, even strong words almost, coming out of nowhere, slow down or turn or whatever, and if they didn't obey that immediately, there would have been a head-on collision. What's that? It's telling you that the guardian angels are really present, and also you may already have had an experience of an accident about to happen, and it could be actually quite serious, or falling off, or about to fall off, or tripping over with a whole lot of stuff in your hands, and somehow you get your act together and it doesn't happen. It's not necessarily just human. These angels have, as it were, invisible muscles, and they can intervene. And just the other day, by chance, I saw on YouTube a miracle captured. It happened to be one of these closed-circuit televisions always operating, and this chap was coming along happily on his kind of ice cream bike. And there, you can see it, this huge 10-ton lorry was coming at a colossal speed in the other direction, and he hadn't a clue. And then, captured on this closed-circuit, you saw this angel coming down, and out of nowhere, zooming just there at that moment, and putting it out of the way. And then the angel disappears. But you can see it. And it's an indication of what actually the camera is seeing, because the camera doesn't fiddle. It can't. It just picks up what is there. But it was allowed by the Lord to show us that very much so these angels are our friends and they are concerned for us. And about a year and a half ago, slightly less actually, on the Feast of the Guardian Angels, do you know what day it is? Do you know what feast it is? What day of the year?
29th September.
The 29th of September is another big angelic feast. Do you know which one it is?
St. Michael.
That's right, St. Michael. Now, a few days later, or 2 days, what is the other one?
Must be the guardian angel.
Yeah, that's right. Do you know what day? It's the 2nd of October, after the Feast of the Little Flower. And so, it was that day, a child of about your age, I would think, was there with the other children in school. It was in America. It was not this last one, but the one before, okay? So just over a year ago. And she had a great devotion to her guardian angel, which explains why she was given this special grace. She had such a devotion to her guardian angel that she would say to her friend, "Veronica, don't sit there, that's what my guardian angel is." So she would somehow be aware of his presence and somehow see things. But anyway, at this celebration, they were all there in the school chapel, and she had the eyes of her soul opened to see what was going on invisibly. And she saw that each of the children, right here, same thing exactly, had an angel right next to the child, looking over it, protecting it. And the priest came on, and she noticed that as it came to the Eucharistic prayer, a big angel, big powerful angel, he protects the best sacraments, St. Michael, was right over him, enveloping him with shelter and protection and awe as well. But then she saw this. Now listen, all of you, great and small, the moment of the consecration, the priest was placing his hands on the chalice, and he was then accompanied not just by St. Michael, but all the angels of the children at that point, at the consecration, zoomed in one direction, and they were all around the chalice, adoring. Now what does that tell you? There's more going on than we can possibly imagine when we're actually involved with Holy Mass. Now, it can happen also that children can die young and suddenly. It's important that a child never lose his innocence. There's a time when usually they're growing up into adolescence, they have to be cool and just be like everyone else, picking up the latest swear word and all the rest of it. Be careful, because even then your guardian angel is very much listening and involved, and it's to him that we have to be pleasing and not to our, in inverted commas, friends. Now, things invite heaven to earth. Acts of kindness and goodness are pleasing to the angels and create, as it were, a whole cloud, an aura, if you like, of goodness around us and invite further graces. And children sometimes are capable of real heroic acts. But there are some which are really, really heroic. And because this is Friday afternoon, I'll just give you one story. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. It was during the war, the last war. You may not be aware, you little ones, although you bigger ones might be studying it in history, the power of Nazi Germany in the beginning was huge. We weren't really prepared, and so they were gaining ground very quickly. They invaded France and these other countries in a short time, and therefore there was this movement of retreat away. Now, did you ever hear of Dunkirk, you little people? What happened there? No? Well, it was when they had to relinquish, they had to leave France, they couldn't save it. So the troops, had to get into one spot on the coast of France to get back to Britain. So there they were, and it was awful. And in practice, some had to be sacrificed to save the others. Now, I'll just say this story, and it's the bit you remember, because people remember stories, as the Lord was using parables here, so this is the bit you'll remember. Listen now. The following edifying story of a disaster at sea and the heroic sacrifice of a priest was taken from a certain William Buckley's Nearer My God, an autobiography of faith, and was relayed by the late actor David Niven. You parents may have seen David Niven on classic films. He was a great American actor, and he'd be seen a lot now, up until he died. David Niven. David Niven told me the engrossing story of a single episode in the chaotic flight from France after Dunkirk in 1940. One motley assembly, Royal Air Force ground personnel who were trapped, Red Cross workers, women, ambulance drivers, and finally the embassy staff from Paris with their children. There were over 3,000 of them by the time they got to Saint-Nazaire at the mouth of the Loire. The British government sent an old liner called the Lancastria to come and take them away with 3 destroyers to guard her. They were just pulling up the anchor when 3 dive bombers came. The destroyers did what they could, but one bomb hit, went down the funnel, and blew a huge hole in the side. So, that means business, doesn't it? Serious trouble. What happens? Goes on one side where the water's coming in, doesn't it? Now, a list to one side it's called. In the hole, that's underneath, down there, in the hole, there were several hundred soldiers. Now, there was no way they could ever get out because of the list. And she was sinking. And along came, this is the actor speaking, my own favourite Good Samaritan, a Roman Catholic priest. a young man in Royal Air Force uniform. Listen to this. He got a rope and lowered himself into the hold to give encouragement and help to those hundreds of men in their last fateful hour. Knowing he couldn't get out, knowing that they couldn't get out either. So there was no return to this rope. He was going down there for keeps. The ship sank, and all in that hold died. The remainder were picked up by the destroyers and came back to England, to the regiment I was in. And we had to look after them. And many of them told me that they were giving up even then in the oil and struggle. And the one thing that kept them going was the sound of the soldiers in the hold singing hymns. So, was it worth it, going down that rope with no return? He gave hope, prayer, grace, and eternal salvation to hundreds and hundreds of others, but gave his own life to do it. Blessed Michael, the Archangel, defend us in the hour of conflict. Be our safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God restrain him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust Satan down to hell, and with him all the evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen.